I'm curious to get your opinion. You being the goalie, I watched Cam Talbot make 38 saves. Were the Maple Leafs goalied on Monday afternoon? Is that your read on things?
A bit. Cam Talbot was really good, right? He's a really good goalie. I think confidence coming off that win in Detroit and where he's at, his experience and where he's at conditioning wise for an older guy. I heard you drop the Alabama Huntsville bomb. I actually played against him in Alabama Huntsville when I was at UMass Lowell, and he was so good there. He carried that team, and he's had a great career. But I think there's a confidence factor of just not getting to him early, in my opinion, right? This is a game where you're starting early at home. You just came off a tough loss on the road in Detroit. I look for this team to be instantly better early, and I think you let him get to his game. He saw a lot of pucks. He's really aggressive. He doesn't really beat himself, Cam Talbot. So that being said, I just think the Leafs kind of made it easy on him, right? I think there was a few big saves, which you have to make, and then roles reversed. I think Anthony Stolarz, needed a big save here or there in a game where he wasn't as busy. But you got to make timely saves, and I don't think Stolarz had it yesterday. I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't want to start panicking yet. But again, I thought it was going to be a better response yesterday from the Maple Leafs, and it was, I think, in what they created. But at the end of the day, it's about winning hockey games and finding ways to do it, and they couldn't do that yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm kind of fighting it right now that, not going scorched earth or anything like that, but how do you pull positives out of that game? The fact of the matter is Saturday night game in Detroit, inferior opponent, apparently, you get up 2 goals and just let right off the gas. And embarrassingly, they come swarming back, and the final score you should be embarrassed of. You get another crack at it at home with your good goaltender in there. And they, what was your thought on their intensity level and just their overall approach to that game?
Well, I think the intensity level was there in a sense, but I just don't think it strings throughout the lineup, right? You look at desperation for certain players, but your better players need to be better. Just like Berube calls out William Nylander that he needs to be better because he has to be better, right? And on flipping the script a bit, Rosie, is look at the Detroit Red Wings, what happened. They lay an egg to start. Todd McLennan comes out and he just rips everybody a new one. And then what happens? His team responds, right? And that's what this league is about. There is going to be ebbs and flows of a season, right? It's 82 games, and it's hard to be consistent all the time. But the effort and the way that you need to play to be successful in the Eastern Conference and the Atlantic Division is on the other side of the puck, and consistency and making it hard. We've seen this how many years in a row? How do the Florida Panthers play when it matters most? They're hard-nosed. They make it tough in areas. They interfere with you, and they just drive you absolutely bonkers, right? I feel like we've watched this for how many years? Craig Berube is trying to create a team that is sandpaper, that is hard to play against. And yes, there's going to be offensive freedom. Yes, there's going to be, when you get your chances, hey, you're a big dog, make it happen. But you need to grind. You need to make it hard on teams. And it's a great example of, this is like a little mini playoff series within the series. To drop 2 straight to the Wings is, in my opinion, just feels like almost unacceptable in the sense of where you're at and where this team's expectations are. Early in the year, yes, I know I don't want to overreact, but we're in the industry of we process what's in front of us. And for me, I think it was a disappointing game at home where you can't find a way to win.
It's interesting to get your perspective as the former goalie. I could only wonder when a goalie's playing like shit. It's like walking on eggshells. So what do you think it's like in a room when a guy like Nylander is playing like preseason hockey right now? Do you have any stories that remind you of a time like that when a star player is just not bringing it enough?
The one that always stands out to me, this is the hardest part of this job. I don't know, Rosie, I don't know if you feel this way, is guys I played with and being critical of guys. But the one guy for me that always kind of had me fired up was Tarasenko in St. Louis, because he was so good when he wanted to be, right? It wasn't the lack of effort, or it wasn't actually at times it was a lack of effort. It was just you knew when he was on his game, he was a bull, right? There was no one that could take him off the puck, and he was so big and so strong and such a difference maker. But he'd be so quick to check out if he didn't get his cookies, if he didn't get his points, if he didn't get, different times like that, where I get that vibe from William Nylander, where he is the difference maker for this team. He is one of the best players in the world, and he can be that when he wants to be, right? So I feel like that's why it becomes frustrating at times. And when it does go bad, right, now we don't have Mitch Marner to shit on, right? He's gone. So now where does that anger and angst, and when someone's not playing, where does it go? It goes toward William Nylander. It goes toward lack of effort on second pucks and retrievals and board play and the little things that help you win a game, where maybe other players, that just becomes second nature. We watch Matthew Nyes play. We watch Bobby McMann, who's been good. Domi, like there's never that lack of effort where at times the check out and just stick checks and soft plays where it becomes deteriorating to a team when he is your guy and he's not producing offensively. So for me, at times, your third and fourth line can win you games. They can get pucks in deep and they can create offense, draw penalties, create an icing, and maybe get your big dogs going throughout a season. But early in a year like this where there's games of magnitude and you're trying to set the tone for the season, and I know they've had slow Octobers before, but it is worrisome in a sense of the post-Marner era.
Exactly. That's kind of why I'm soured today, is watching some of Willie's not give a shits plays. It's like, there's no team that goes deep and wins championships with even one guy like that. Like it just has to be buy-in from everybody. And, you got these new guys here and Berube's trying to instill this and what happened last year in the playoffs and losing Marner, but we're going to prove that we got better. And then one guy is just like, yeah, I heard all that. And you guys all have to do that, but I'm not going to. I don't have to. I'm above that. It's just, it screams that. The body language, the look on his face just screams, I don't have to do that. And you got a young kid like Easton Cowan just chomping at the bit, his first game. And you don't think he looks up to those guys? And again, right, if you were on a 3-game, heater and points coming out your ass and you get caught doing a couple of those things, yeah, well, you kind of take your foot off the gas and it's coming easy to you a little bit there. And it's not the case. So like, Willie, how can you justify that? It is a Willie Nylander thing, and he has that attitude sometimes, but for some reason that pissed me off today. But I digress. I was going to ask about the goaltenders here. You can't ride Stoli. I mean, Wool's gone into the abyss of no one's allowed to talk about it. Stoli's sitting there playing pretty good. Back to back here, I imagine you got to go away from them. What are you thinking with the other two options in between the pipes there?
Primeau was brought in, right? I think you give him a chance. He's a little more insulated, I think, than he was in Montreal. He still has a lot of upside. Nick and I were texting yesterday about who got this start, and I'm not surprised they went back to Stolarz just the way that Saturday went. I know it's a little bit of a quick turnaround, but just thinking that the team would respond better, which they did, I guess, when you look at a box score and a stat sheet. But now you have to go to somebody else, right? I think you need to protect Stolarz. And for me, I circle back to, I'm pretty sure I was on the show when we did this last year, was he had that really, really good overtime win. Matthews got the winner in New Jersey. He had a really, really good game. And then they went back to him like a couple days later. You got to be careful, right? This is a guy that can be a difference maker. He's been hurt a few times. He got hurt in the playoffs last year, which was, a contact injury, a little different. But you're trying to protect him while Joseph Woll is out. I also look for this team to get a young kid to get a start to respond well too, right? Where at times when you have Joseph Woll and Anthony Stolarz the way they've played, you have a safety net, right? And this was kind of me when I started my career. Like I think at Cayden Primeau, I bounced around for a while before I really started to cut my teeth in the NHL. It's like when the backup plays, it almost gives you a little more reason to defend a little harder, to support that guy, especially backups are usually well liked in the room. You kind of have to be because you're not really the star. You're not really good enough to just demand things. And most guys are pretty down to earth when it comes to that because you're not really competing with anybody. So I look for them to have a good response. Just like we saw Edmonton the other night after a tough Stuart Skinner debacle, which we've seen so many times. Calvin Pickard gets the start. And what did they give up in that game against Vancouver? 14 or 15 shots. Like they didn't give up a sniff. So I look for that response, just being like, hey, this is the new guy. He's a young guy. We got to answer the call here, boys. We got to support him. So I look for that to be a big response here from a Nashville team who seems to be kind of finding a way to win right now. They're being a little bit pesky about those pesky Preds, eh?
Scratching and clawing one of your former teams, and UC Saros gets to win a 4-1 win. And of note in that game, Brady Tkachuk hurts his wrist, doesn't play the final 9 minutes, something to monitor moving forward from the Ottawa Senators' perspective. But I am expecting a battle of the backups. Can confirm Cayden Primeau is going to start this game, make his Maple Leafs debut here. 13, 24, and 7, 3.69, 884, 2 shutouts, 26. You can't forget down a couple of years back. I mean, he was one of the top prospects, at least looked that way from the Montreal Canadiens perspective. What is Cayden Primeau at this point in his career, and what's the expectation of any backup? Like you sort of talked about it there, but like we think Jussi Sanninen is going to go for Nashville, right?
Yeah, it will be. It's too early in the year to be going back to back. And especially when you look at UC Saros and like the Olympic break coming, he's going to be an Olympian. He's going to play for Team Finland. The game gets compressed a bit, right? So this is where you really need to This is a bad time to be not having Joseph Woll, too, in my opinion, because of the early in the season. You want to get these guys into a rhythm. So for them, I think for Cayden Primeau, the upside of his career would be like a potential backup. He can start to dial it in. And again, we expect so much of young players. We expect so much of goalies, of defensemen, because we see it, right? We see Matthew Schaefer step in, play right away. We see all these different guys come in the league and have success, but it takes time. And not everyone's on the same template. Not everyone's in the same position. And what I mean by that is, if you go and play for the Florida Panthers as a younger guy and you get slotted into a good situation, you're going to almost have a better chance of succeeding because you're so insulated, right? Where as a goalie, it's a little different, right? There's no being put with a veteran D pairing. There's no, being on the wing with a veteran centerman and another winger. You're kind of standing on your own on an island too. So there always is that rush to get guys in the league. And I feel like the change between the NCAA and the CHL is going to help a lot of goalies, where when you're 19 or 20 in this major junior, previously, you age out. So then you have to go play pro. And usually you're not ready physically, mentally. Skill set wise, you're talented, but you haven't really put those tools together. You haven't been exposed to different situations. And then all of a sudden you're in the American League, you're in the East Coast, where now these guys that go to the NCAA get a little bit more time to, develop. It helps them. And great example, compared to Cayden Primeau, I don't think he has the same upside as Sam Montembeault. Sam Montembeault started in the league with the Florida Panthers as a young guy right out of junior. He wasn't ready. He was horrible. I played against him a bunch of times and he stunk. And now you look at Sam Montembeault, might be one of the biggest bright spots in that for younger goalies coming up who's, been through that. And it just takes a little bit of time thickening the skin. And what I think what's good for Cayden Primeau is he's not in Montreal anymore, but he's dealt with the BS of the Montreal market and not playing well and the pressure. Now he's in Toronto. He has a better team in front of him. There's a good, solid D-core. I look for him to be successful. And I think just going out there and playing and being in the moment, there is upside, but it takes time. These guys, it just takes time to be good as a goalie.
Mm-hmm. And you spoke of, insulation and opportunity. And I think everybody thought that the 1-2 shot of Woll and Stolarz was pretty solid. Now with Woll being out of the picture, what do you think, the proper handling of Anthony Stolarz looks like as far as workload this season, if things continue to look this way?
Again, whether it's good or bad, I think rest is going to be important, right? And again, you look at a lot of guys down the stretch, right? Is this a team? I feel like this is a team we're not concerned about playoffs, right? We're just where do we land? If you are in the hunt, you can win the division. Yes, that's great, because then you're not going to get a first round Atlantic Division matchup of the heavy hitters at that point. But at the end of the day, it's going to be based off playoff success, right? It feels like this has been this way for how many years now, the Toronto Maple Leafs. We don't even care what the regular season is. It's a formality. We judge it. We process it. We see where they're at. So being strategic with a guy that's been injury prone, that he's missed minutes, because losing him last year hurt that team in a sense, right? There's just he was the big Stoli, man. He's has a presence in the net. He communicates well. When he's one of the most verbal goalies that there is in the NHL, whether it's cycles or reverses or just anything in the defensive zone, that becomes a tool as well that gets, I guess, maybe unnoticed in the sense of something we don't see on a stat sheet, right? Jay, Nick, you guys get this, right? We hear that all the time about locker room and culture and guys that are around your team. There's value there, and there's value of him being healthy and where he's at. So being strategic with how you deploy him is going to be huge without a Joseph Woll. Because if Cayden Primeau has a great start, now you can go to Stolarz and you can kind of protect him a bit, because it's going to be a grind this year. There's going to be more back-to-backs. There's going to be more of a compressed schedule because of that Olympic break.
Yeah, even this week alone, they play 4 different times, right? They play Thursday, they play Saturday. You're just going to need your backup. And I think people are living in a crazy world if they think Stolarz is going to play 55, 60 games. It's not going to work out that way, whether it's Primeau or Woll or Hildeby. They need help when it comes to the depth chart in between the pipes. Huts, excellent stuff. You always help us out. Thanks for this.
Yeah, boys, thanks for having me on.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.